All right, so welcome to Wealth Cartel 365, the next episode, which is about cash flow, account structuring, and budgeting. Now, this is a topic that a lot of people want to pay off simply because they think it's boring, they think it's beneath them, but it is the number one thing as a financial advisor and coach that we get the biggest results with the fastest. Most people want to come in and talk about, what's the thing I can invest in that's going to make me all this money, what's the best asset? The best asset is yourself, first and foremost. The best thing you can invest in is yourself. So let's start by maximizing what we're producing. Now, when we're talking about cash flow and budgeting, we're talking about taking the power back. At the end of the day, financial freedom is completely based on you taking the power back from the money, not letting the money have the control over you. So then you can guide it towards the life that you want to live. And that's it in its simplest form. Giving you choice to choose the life that you want to live. If you don't have control over that, then no matter what you do on the other side, it's never going to be a fully freedom. You're always going to be a slave to that financial, to that currency. So cash flow and budgeting really comes down to simply knowing your numbers, being conscious about where they go, and then telling your money where to go in a way that allows you to choose the life that you want to live. We can really break cash flow and budgeting down into a couple of parts. The first part is the budget, which can then break that down into earning versus spending, and then also down into necessities, luxuries, and wealth. We can then move into the account structure side of things. And on the account structure side of things, we can turn that into, all the different buckets and everything towards where we want our money to go to be able to achieve all the goals we've done. So we just finished the last session where we talked about prioritization document. We talked about prioritizing our goals. We talked about going from a 30-year plan, a 10-year plan, a 1 to 3 year plan, and then breaking that down into pay cycles. So moving on from that, once we break it down into pay cycles, we then want to have an account structure set up that's reflective of the budget that then tells our money where to go each pay cycle. So if we earn this much, we spend less than this, and we put this much towards our future, that allows us to be on track every 6 months towards our financial goals, our lifestyle goals. Then if we do that every 6 months and we adjust it accordingly, then every 1 to 3 years we should be on track. And then if we do that every 1 to 3 years, we should be on track every 5 to 10. If we do that every 5 to 10, we should be on track every 20 to 30, right? So that's just the compounding approach to how we do this prioritization flowing into the cash flow and account structures. So when we do a budget, to start off, it's really important to understand that a budget just tells you where your money's gone, but an account structure tells your money where to go. And if you think about that, so many people always say, I don't know where our money goes. That is the key indicator that your money has power over you, because you're just making do with whatever's left, rather than having a structured plan that says, here are my goals, here's where I'm sending my money, and then living your life according to that. And that's the big difference. We want to do a budget to start. The first thing to do is a budget. And I know it's painful, I know you hate it, but it's the first starting point, right? And you should hate it so that you get your structure sorted so you never have to do it again. So we start that budget to really figure out where's all our money going? Where is it going? We categorize it, we assess it, we analyze it. When we then set up our account structure, which then should accurately tell our money where to go, there's no real need to ever do a budget again unless things change or you're starting to miss and you need to dive back in. It's almost like a punishment. Your budget should almost be like a punishment for not staying on track with your account structure. Unless things change, then it is a necessity. Once you do the budget, you set up your account structure, then you should be able to set up something like a cash flow app along the lines of Moolah is our favorite. And you use that Moolah app that then becomes your tracking and your budget expenditure. I don't understand when people run a budget and they sit there and they tick and flick, highlight things and look at receipts every week. That is not financial freedom. Your system should be primarily automated. We're going to go through today 2 ways that you can set up your account structure to be able to facilitate that. But going back first to the budget. So we just use a bastardized version of the Money Smart budget. Money Smart is a great budget with categories on there, but we have taken that and created our own template. And our own template breaks things down to necessities, luxuries, and then a summarized page. So let's start with the budget. So you fill in the budget, be as accurate as possible. Now, when you're filling in the budget, it is very important that you don't overemphasize your numbers by doing some silly things such as putting in things that could and may happen, right? Your budget, your running budget should be a tally of the numbers of things that happen every month or every few months, guaranteed, right? I see budgets, people go, oh, we're just going to put in a little bit extra here to budget for what if the car breaks down, or we're going to put in a little bit extra here to budget for, what if this happens, what if that happens? If you budgeted for every possible scenario that could happen, you would have no money left to put towards your goals, which would be the biggest waste of opportunity cost ever. And people who sit on too much cash or are too conservative, that's the biggest waste they have, is opportunity cost, There is a fine line between putting enough aside and having things there to cover all your expenses and the what ifs, and being able to put some towards your future. And this is where the emergency buffer comes in, but we'll get to that. So the first thing you do is you complete the budget, you break it all down. Now, at the end of that budget, the first thing you want to do is look at that and go, let's be savage, and let's say, what are things in here that we can cut out? Okay, so you go through the budget. If someone had a gun to your head, what are all the things that you could cut out and not miss completely? Go through and you highlight those things if there is any. Once you've done that and you've gone, we actually don't need those things, that's a waste, consolidate some subscriptions, do whatever. Then you go through and highlight with a different color. What are the things in this budget that we think are a bit over the top? What are some things that we could minimize? And you've cut some, now we want to minimize some. And you find those. And it might be some insurances that you haven't compared in a while. It might be some subscriptions. It might be just some other things that you've been fucking around and not spending time on. So you look at those, you highlight those. Then you go through and you make those adjustments, and then that should give you your relatively, your new expenses that are right. Once you do those expenses, you then want to run a ratio. So on our budget, and if you want that, you can comment below budget. I'll send it across to you. You enter it into the first tab, and then it pulls it all across. And what happens is it breaks it down into necessities, luxuries, and then a summary. Now, necessities. In normal living, or in most people's head, necessities, roof over your head, food and water. That's true, that's a necessity, but I like to categorize necessities as things that are important to you that you don't want to live without. Things that are, they add value to your life, and you need those to live at a quality of life that makes you happy. That's what I say necessities. So we put subscriptions in there, gym memberships, we put internet, we put people have high grocery bills, they like to live organically, yet we do that as well. We put some other things, some beauty stuff, clothes, that because you do need a level of hair, you need your haircuts, you need clothes to maintain a level of lifestyle. There's a fine line though between what's normal and when you're taking the piss. And whatever the taking the piss amount is, that extra needs to be a luxury, it's not a necessity. But we start there and we break that down, right? Then what's left is what else we have is considered a luxury, and then whatever's left should be your surplus, right? Now I take out what I don't like in a budget is when you're doing this budget, people will see it and they'll say, oh yeah, we have all this stuff, and they allocate towards fines, and they allocate towards alcohol and takeaway and travel and all that stuff, and then they try and save what's left. You got to reverse that, right? Your necessities, you get them as low as you can within comfortability range. They become set. What's left from your surplus, then you should allocate a percentage towards your luxury and travel, and then save the rest as well. You shouldn't be saving what's left after you spend those things, right? You should have a targeted amount. You should have a targeted amount for your savings, and then have an adjusted amount for your luxuries and travel that makes sense. Not enjoy yourself and then invest later. That's how we don't have balance. So when we do that and we come up with our necessity and our luxury split, we then want to run through a few scenarios. Now, remembering that the reason we do these scenarios is the only way for you to have more money in your pocket is to either earn more or spend less. Any strategy you have is a mix of those two things. Whether it's a tax strategy, an investing strategy, it's one of those two things. And ideally you want to do a bit of both. But the problem I see the most with budgeting and cash flow is that people analyze the problem incorrectly, which means they then don't have the right solution. So what I'm saying there is I see a lot of people, most people sit on a spectrum, or most people sit on the extremism of the spectrum. They're either really good savers, not good earners, or they're really good earners and they're terrible spenders, right? Really good spenders. And both think they're right. It's okay, I'll earn my way out of this. Well, Yeah, but you could just fix up your habits and you would close that gap quicker. Oh, I'm going to try and save. Well, if you learn how to earn more, you close that faster. So it's okay to be on one end, but you got to understand with the analysis where the problem lies so you can solve it quicker. An example I have is, I had this lady come to me once. She was a weapon of a woman, man. She was a single mum. She was raising, I think it was 3 or 4 kids, and she was on like $50,000 or $60,000 a year. Now, that's like in Sydney, that's a hard ask, right? She did it all herself, and she raised these kids. And she came to me and she said, I'm so bad with my money. I was like, what? She said, I'm so bad with my money. We have none. We have none left over. And I was like, dude, you're not bad with your money. You are phenomenal. With what you have, you are managing phenomenally, right? Just because you're not saving or investing, you're raising those kids on that income in this location. It is a feat within itself that should be mastered. Like, how far you're stretching that money is crazy, right? Like, you're really good with managing your money. You just don't earn enough. And so she would spend weeks on weeks every week. So hours on hours on hours. She would spend hours and hours and hours every week looking at how can I save $50 so I can take the kids out for dinner. When in reality, if she just spent those hours at another job, that would have been solved much quicker. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell a single mum of multiple kids to go and get another job if she, time constraint. But I'm saying that's the reality is if you're going to spend those hours harping over how to save the money when you could just spend half those hours earning it, that's a better solution. And I showed her this and she was like, oh my God, that's like, you're right. And I was like, you just don't earn enough. Like, you got to stop bashing yourself about how you can do better with what you have, because it's unrealistic. It's irrational to think you can do better with what you have. You just can't. And so either you need to invest in upskilling or spend those hours that you're otherwise trying to cut money to earn a bit more. And she did. She found a little side hobby that she did. And she spent 3 or 4 hours a week selling these little gadgets on the side. And it made her like $150 to $200 a week. And she felt rich. She did. She felt substantially rich. And just the analysis to understand that you're looking in the wrong place is sometimes all people need to be able to get ahead. We all sit there and you watch Instagram, this person saying, do Forex or buy these properties. Some people just don't have that capacity. But there's always something you can do. And in this instance, it was that. The next step for her would have been to invest a portion. Somebody said she got $50 for, that dinner out with her kids. The other 150 a week should be invested in the market. No, I don't think it should. That other $150 a week should be invested in herself to try and upskill, because she's never going to get ahead fast enough than what she needs for that. And that's what she did. She's not a client anymore, so I'm not sure. If you're watching this, I hope you're well. I really enjoyed working with you. You're a fantastic lady. And I'm very proud of what you did. But anyway, so I'm not sure what she did after that, but my advice was to go and invest in herself and upskill. But that's what you need to look at in your situation. You go, okay, where do I sit? Am I on that need to earn more? Or am I on that I need to spend less? Or am I somewhere in between? And most people are somewhere in between. So a couple of things. I like to run percentages on my budget. I like to run percentages on my budget so that I can try and see contextually how things are going to look as I grow. There is that old saying, you earn more, you spend more, and it's frowned upon. And I think that's incorrect. I think if you earn more, you should spend more. But if you keep a ratioed approach, then yeah, you can live a better life as you earn more money in all aspects. Where that goes wrong is people do get a bit carried away. Too much debt, too many cars, bigger house, all this stuff. And the percentage of money allocated to the future dwindles. So, I just had a meeting with someone today where they save $72,000 a year and their income's not huge. And I was like, man, that is so amazing. Like, that's 50% of your income. That's fantastic. I have clients on $500,000 a year that think $72,000 of savings is a lot, but compared to their income, it's fucking terrible. But they just see that number and think, yeah, 70 is a good number, so I'm going to save that. And I just don't think it is. It needs to be contextual to what you're earning. Otherwise, what's the point of putting all that extra work in and growing more if you don't get more out of it? And if you run a lot of advisors hate percentages, and I can see why, but I think when done correctly, if you approach it from the right way, the percentages allow you to grow in line with your income and live a life in line with your income and enjoy across the board. If you are focusing on wealth, then yeah, no, it's not the best way. You should focus on numbers and keep those expenses low and invest more. But if you're one of the people that align with me who want to balance that living a good life while getting ahead for tomorrow, then yeah, I think percentages work really, really well. But the caveat to that is I like to bring it forward. So once you do the budget and that summary pops out of what percentage you run. So you want to see what percentage of your income's 100%, and you shouldn't be looking at income from here, income from there. It's all just one income, right? Income is at 100%. What percentage is your necessities? Now, there are some rules with this. Now, rule number 1 is anything over 80%, and this includes debt. People say, but isn't my investment property cost? Isn't that a wealth expense? It kind of is, but for your budget, it has to be a necessity, because if things go bad, you can't turn that off whenever you want. It's there regardless. So I like to have that in the necessity cost. And people, you look at that and you say, right, from a factual point of view, when people start pushing over 80% of their income into necessities, we're hitting financial stress. And I get so many people who have lots of properties, they on paper, they're rich. And they say, we're just fucking struggling. We're just fucking struggling, and we don't know what to do. We feel like we've got all this wealth on paper and we feel like we have no money. And the answer is because you don't. Like, you've got 80% going out. That leaves 20% left to split between luxuries, travel, and other investments. Saving, whatever. It's fucking not enough. Like, it's fuck all. So when we're over 80%, we start falling into financial stress. And this is where bad habits happen, desperation, we start making bad decisions. So I do not like anyone being at 80%. If you are over 80%, you need to focus on getting that down. And if that means selling a house, if that means reducing debt, whatever it is, means getting another job, then fucking do it. Get out. 80% is brutal territory. Then the next phase is 70 to 80. Now, you're not in financial stress, but you are struggling, right? It's not comfortable. 70 to 80% is not comfortable, so you don't want to be there either. But if you're in 80, try and get to 70 first, right? Drop down. Let's take steps. Once we're down around that 70, then we start getting to good territory. So 60 to 70 is comfortable, very comfortable. You can live comfortably between 60 and 70% of your necessities. But the 3 stages I really like. You've got to decide whether you want, and this might change over your life, right? But you've got to decide whether you want to be on the wealth gain or on the lifestyle gain or somewhere in the middle. So for those people who want to be full on the wealth, you should be aiming, build wealth as fast as possible. You should be aiming to keep your necessities down as close to 40% as possible. That'll give you 20% towards luxuries, 10% little, 10% big, and that'll give you 40% towards going towards your future. If you want to be balanced, so a little bit here, a little bit there, I like to have it 50%. Try and get your necessities down to 50%. That gives you 20% luxuries and then 30% towards your wealth as well. If you want to be more on the lifestyle side, so you're happy to work a little bit longer and live a better life, then your necessities can be up around 60%. Still 20% luxuries and then the 20% into your wealth. People say, why isn't the luxuries increasing? Well, the luxuries shouldn't increase. It's your quality of living that you do every week is what should really increase. You can, if you want, keep your necessities at 40 and increase your luxury. I don't give a fuck. Your luxuries and your necessities are one expense, right? When I talk about the 3 things, how much you earn, how much you spend, how much you put aside, how much you spend comes down to bills, so your necessities and your luxuries. So bills, lifestyle, travel. They're the 3 major ones. However you split that up, I don't care. Doesn't bother me, but that's how it's classified. I just don't think having more than 20% allocated toward luxuries and travel while you're still trying to build wealth makes a lot of sense. If it's something that's really important to you that you want to increase, I think it should be factored in as a necessity. But you can split that however you want. But that's how I think. So 40, 50, 60, somewhere between those 3. So you figure out that percentage, right? Now, if you're not in that, then you can look at things. You can divide and if you want to have a look at our budget, we can do this for you. But you can divide your expenses by your income and you figure out where you sit. Now, if it is up over that 80%, then you can also do an equation where you figure out, well, how much do I need to either spend less to fall under that, or how much do I need to earn to not change anything and be in those categories. Now, our budget will do all of that for you, but you can do the basic maths if you want. Once you look at that, it'll give you a very quick indication to which way you should go, whether it's a bit of each or you should slide one way or another. The first step you then got to do is, once you look at that, you take a step back and you say, right, let's go down the numbers path now. If you aren't in the percentage realm, the first thing I will say is, statistically speaking, anyone who doesn't surplus more than $1,000 a month is neutral. On average, it's about $1,000 a month of random things that pop up over the year. So if you're saving $500, $600, $700, $800 a month, but you don't feel like you're getting ahead because you keep dipping into it, that's why. It's normal. It's completely normal. It's not you, it's normal. You need to realistically, you have to be able to put aside more than $1,000 a month to not feel like you're going backwards. Then that brings me on a second one. is $2,000 a month or more is really the number where you can start feeling like you're getting ahead. Now, I say that to start because no matter what your income is, if you're not doing one of those two things, then you've got to get to that. Once you're there, let's say, for example, that $2,000 a month is a substantial portion of your income. It's not going to be sustainable unless you increase your income. Let's say it's on the other side and that $2,000 a month is a very minuscule part of your income. Get your shit together, manage your money properly because you're clearly spending too much, right? So we go through the percentages, we allocate, we figure out where we want to be, and we go from there. Then what we do is we start with a basic account structure, okay? We start with a basic account structure. So firstly, we have our income, and our income, if you haven't read The Barefoot Investor, you should break it up into buckets. Now, I like to have a few buckets. First bucket I like to have is my hub account, also known as the bills account, okay? That's where all of our income goes into there. Now, if you have a look up here, you can see this. Our income comes down. This is my personal structure, right? This is my personal structure. So our income comes down into our bills account, okay? Our bills account is whatever our bills are per year, including annual, biannual, monthly, whatever, all the bills for the year plus a little buffer flow into that account and they stay. That's already spent, right? If you've got all your savings, everything coming out of one account, how the fuck are you going to delineate what's what? You're just touching money that's already spent thinking that you're richer than you are. You need to segregate this. You want to set up as many direct debits as you can out of this, okay? You should have a card for groceries, petrol, anything that's a necessity on your budget that you can't use direct debit for. That's what that card's for. But do not just try and use card for everything. Set it up, automate it as much as you can. If you have a bill that you pay annually, 6 monthly or whatever, quarterly, and you're not getting 6% or more discount, stop, make it monthly. It's better for your cash flow and the money's better in your bank. If you are getting a 6% or more discount, great. If you've got a few of them, consider setting up a separate annual bill account that you can put money into and have it all come out of there. It'll make managing it a little bit easier. If you have a home loan, this should be an offset account. If you're running the annual account, that should be an offset account too. So this account should be an offset account, right? What you should also have in there, once you get to the stage, is, actually we'll talk about that in the emergency buffers. So once you set the bills, that's all coming out. Then what you want to do is you want to have a wealth account. If you've got a home, this should be an offset account as well. This is a mix of your emergency buffer and your investment money, okay? So you should be direct debiting whatever the amount is, 20%, 30%, 40%, depending on your split. That's how much should be going into that account every pay cycle first and foremost. After that, then you can split your 10% up into luxury and travel. Your travel should also be an offset or a high savings account. Your luxury account should be a separate everyday account that has a separate debit card attached compared to your bills account. Okay, they should be two different cards. What I like to do with my clients is I like my debit card to be on my phone for tap, tappity, tap. And I like this to be my bills account to be a physical card. That way, when I'm at the shop and I've run out of luxury, I can't just do the sneaky slide, tap, oh, whoops, wrong card. I have to actually consciously pay for shit because consciousness is what is most important about this. Then what we have over here, this is not an account. This is just an idea you should be running to know at all times what your buffers need to be. So if you add those things up and you add these three things up and you times them by 3, that's your minimum buffer. So you've got 6, 7, 8 times 3. I need to update one. That's 25. It's 24, but we round it up, right? So $25,000, the minimum amount of money I should have in my account at any given time. If I fall below that in my buffer account, I need to stop doing whatever the fuck I'm doing and get that money back up over the top. What it also tells me is that's the minimum. It should also tell me what the maximum is. So 6 months worth is the maximum for our clients, which means it's double that amount. So it's 50,000. So what that tells me is anytime I have under 25,000 in my emergency account, I need to stop what I'm doing and get it back to the top, back to 25. Anytime I have over 50,000, so 6 months, then I should be asking, what am I doing? I probably got too much cash on hand. Unless I'm saving for a property or a big purchase, I really should be investing that or putting that somewhere into super, the kids' funds, my trust, whatever it is, right? So that gives you a guide to actually know where you're at. You go, okay, well, if I'm at under 25, nothing else to focus on other than get to 25 based on your 3 months emergency buffer. If I'm over 50, then I should be actually okay, I need to sit down and take some time between what I'm doing with my money. Then off the back of your wealth, right? So you got your travel account, your bills, your luxury spending. If there's a couple, like there's 2 of you, this should be split into 2 people and you should get half of that each, okay? With your own cards that you can't see, unless the other person has bad habits or something like that. But I like it, have a bit of individuality with our family. This is split for us, I just haven't put it on our account structure. Travel, that should save in there. So that what people do wrong with traveling is they're always going all right, we're going to go here, figure it out, and figure it out later. What this does is go, okay, we've got $1,000 a month. That means we want to spend 24 grand to go to Europe with the family. All right, we can go in 2 years and we'll plan that for 2 years. We can pay for things along the way, but we're planning for shit when we can afford it, not doing it and then figuring it out later. And that's a massive problem a lot of you have. Then with our wealth, we then allocate off the back of that. Now, if we don't have our emergency buffer, then 100% of the wealth should be going to the emergency buffer. Once we hit our emergency buffer, then we should be looking at what our other things are. Are we saving for a house? Are we putting money in shares? Are we putting money in super, kids funds, whatever it is? Based off your purposeful plan and your modeling and where you need to go, you can then allocate that accordingly, right? So you can see right now that for us, we can afford $3,000 a month in excess housing costs for our investment properties. We're investing $2,000 a month up into our trust for our share portfolio, split between shares and crypto. The kids, the kids' bonds are up there as well, but we're not adding to the kids' bonds anymore. All the money in the trust is what's going to be distributed out to the kids, so we don't need that. And then we're topping up our super with $1,000 a month each as well, right? So we're doing all that stuff, and this fully directs where it's going, and that's all automated. It's all automated from there, so I don't have to think about a thing. Okay, I only have to adjust this when my goals change. Now back to the emergency buffer. What do we use the emergency buffer for? The emergency buffer is for emergencies, obviously, right? So things that need to be paid that you can't get around, that you don't have the money for, okay? That haven't been allocated for bills. So when things like a reno pops up, like a quicker repair or a hospital bill, shit like that, that's what your emergency buffer's for. You get laid off work, you need some income for a period of time, that's what your emergency buffer's for. It's not there as a little slush fund for you to play around with whatever the fuck you want, okay? That's what your luxury and your traveler account are for. And if you're going to do renovations or something, set up a separate renovation account and use that for that. Save for it. If you're going to have a wedding, save for the wedding. Don't use your emergency buffer. If you're going to buy a house, make sure that you're at least coming out of that house with your 3-month emergency buffer in the offset, not actually put down the mortgage. Otherwise, you can't afford it. If something goes wrong straight away, you're going to lose that house immediately. Okay, so once we set this up, it's really important that we then test it. Okay, so I like to do this thing called a no spending challenge. When we set this up, what I do is I say, right, this is the ideal budget, but for the next 30 days, we're going to cut out the luxury and the travel. And that's what we're going to do. Now, if you'd like our no spending challenge, comments no spending below, and I'll send it to you. We've also got a purposeful challenge as well, which I'll talk about in a minute. So what you do is once you set up your buffer, you've done your budget, you set up your account structures, everything's flowing. Before we do that, so once you set up the main emergency buffer, the next goal you want to have is your triage of emergencies. So an ideal account structure has our 3-month emergency buffer. It has a 1 pay cycle emergency buffer in the bills, and it's really good to start with that so that as you're getting used to this cycle, there's enough money in to let it flow around, right? It's like seed money. Then I like to put a little bit of money to start the luxuries with a little bit of money. So probably like double what you're allocating. So you've got a bit of a buffer there. That's how I like to do it, right? I like to have those extra little seed money to get the plan flowing so that you don't feel like you're being restricted from the get-go. Once we do this and we set it up, then we say, right, let's run a 30-day challenge to get consciousness. And we've got a spending journal that we use so that you can sort of understand and see how important it is. Now, when we do the spending journal, and I'll actually get it up so I can go through it with you. All right, so in our spending journal, when we look at this, what we're doing is we're setting a goal for 30 days. In that 30 days, we're going to say, let's aim to not spend any money that we can't spend again next month. Now, the way to fail this spending challenge, so the idea is to try and save as much as you can, but the saving isn't the goal. The saving is the tracking system. It's not the goal, okay? So, right, if we don't spend any money other than bills for these next 30 days, we've got 100,000 in our bank, we should have 110,000, for example, right? The difference between what actually happens in that 110 is where you analyze and see where the money went. Now, in that 30 days, you want to aim to say no to as many things as possible that you can do again the following month. However, you will fail this challenge if you just sit at home and do nothing for 30 days. It's not what it's about. The whole goal here is to build consciousness, understand what you enjoy, what's important to you, etc. You'll also fail this challenge if you just don't even try and just say yes to everything and spend a normal month. Doesn't make any sense. So we set these goals up. Now, in in our new spending challenge, this is our old one, I just realised. So in our new spending journal, Alright, so in our new no spending challenge, as you can see up on the screen, what we're looking at is you want to start out by, there's a few notes there, but you start out with a goal, right? What's the target goal that I'm going to have and what do I want to use this for? You start out by writing, what are some of the biggest challenges I might expect over this 30 days? Like, a lot of people get anxiety over it. They're like, oh, fuck, I'm worried. And it's like, guys, it's 30 days out of the rest of your life. It's fucking nothing. Like, suck it up. Like, actually push yourself. And if you're really stressing about not spending for 30 days, that shows how bad you're actually, what a position you're in, right? You got to be able to go 30 days for the benefit of the rest of your future. So you write on there what the biggest challenges you expect are. If you've got a partner, we talk about how we'll keep each other accountable, because the biggest thing for partners in this 30 days is to make sure that you are communicating. Like, if a client didn't save any money, but they increased the communication over that 30 days about money, by far the biggest benefit, right? So you write how we're going to keep each other accountable, and how we'll handle disagreements or slip-ups. Then we do a little commitment to each other, and then we start. So week one, what did I struggle? So you go through the first week, you try and say no. What are the things you struggle to say no to? Coffees, lunch, or whatever it is, right? What was easy to go without? Oh shit, actually I meal prepped and it was heaps easier than I thought. What emotions did you feel that week surrounding money? How did you feel? You feel annoyed, you feel anxious, you feel excited. Then number two, in week two, what was the repetitive behavior we found hard to break? What were some expenses you struggled to say no to? And what's your overall feeling so far? Okay, we want to break this down into emotions. How do I actually feel about this? By week two, you should be like, actually, I'm getting the swing of this. Actually, I'm noticing I'm spending so many little things that I don't really give a fuck about that's leaking out the back of the budget, right? Week three, what were your thoughts and feelings like coming into this week? What do you feel like you're in control of? And what still needs work? Put a little win for each week at the bottom. Then the fourth week, what was your biggest improvements from week 1 to 4? What's anything you can't get under control? And did you feel progress in the last week compared to the first? You fill all those in, and then you do a summary. At the end of that 30 days, you want to write down what are the things you now feel like you can't go without? What things did you surprise yourself with? And what was your biggest takeaway? By doing that, you're going to be able to analyze straight away. Let's say you missed everything that you always spent on, right? Completely. Okay, well, actually, you were doing it pretty consciously before. You just weren't aware. Therefore, we're going to go back to that and allocate to those things. Most people will go, fuck, what happened? This is the most common thing that happens. What happened was I cut out all the little shit. And then when we went out to dinner, I actually went and spent a lot of money on dinner because it was an important dinner we had, and I didn't hold back. But we did that and still hit my target. How does that work? That's because of how much shit you're leaking. Most people leak 30% of their budget in shit they don't even think about, right? So you spend 30 days, you get to figure that out. Then what we do, we go down and we say, right, based on that, here's the update. Right, well, what did I miss out on? Okay, well, I didn't play any golf and that fucking hurt. I didn't get to have coffees out every couple of days. I didn't get to go out on the weekend for a dinner date, and you add these things up. Plus, I want to save for a couple of PlayStation games, or I want to save for a new clothes or whatever it is. You add those things up over the year and you say, right, okay, that means I need to allocate $30 a week to golf, $30 a week to coffees, $40 a week to fucking something else, and $50 a week to saving, right? Okay, $150 a week, great. Well, you put that number in your luxury spending, $150 a week, and that's where you allocate yourself. Then you say, okay, well, ideally, what's my budget? So let's say 10% of $1,500 per month. I can afford $1,500 a month in holidays, but I don't need that. I only want $1,000 a month. 12 grand a year is a good number for me and my family to go on holidays for the holidaying we're doing. So I'm going to reduce that to 1,000, and then that's going to leave me with what's left for my wealth. Now I've got my wealth number. Now I can reverse engineer my wealth goals and go, right, which ones do I focus on first? Do I put more towards housing, more towards my investing, more towards super? What does that look like? And that's how we set up a conscious budget plan. After that point, you can then go through, and if everyone should have this tool handy, is our Purposeful Spending Challenge. So it's pretty much the same thing as the no spending, but it's about after you've done that. So after you've done the no spending, Then what we want to do is do it whenever we feel off track, or you can do it straight away, is we do the Purposeful Spending Challenge. And what this looks like, this is for anyone who's got a budget that feels like they're falling off track. You can do this as well. So once we go through, we start out by writing down, okay, what are all the necessities that we know are non-negotiables, and what are the things that we feel like lately are tweaking out a bit, and we want to try and run a bit of an assessment on them. And you make those notes. You do the same with luxuries. Well, we know that going out for dinner dates once a week is a non-negotiable, but we're starting to slip with ice cream and this and that, beers, whatever, right? And you put those in. Then you make commitments about if you want to add to super or whatever in that month or travel. And then we start. So week 1, awareness. What spending this week felt most aligned with my priorities? What spending didn't feel worth it? What value did I get from my money this week? Then in week 2, where did my spending reflect my values and goals? Where did I spend out of habit or impulse? And what do I want to change going into the next week? Week 3, which purchase brought genuine happiness or progress? Which ones could I have skipped without impact? And am I proud of how I used my money this week? Then in week 4, what was my biggest improvement from weeks 1 to 4? What spending habits feel strong and consistent? And what do I think still needs attention? Then we go through and reflect. Okay, I made a list of these essential necessities. Which ones stayed true? Which ones could I trim, downgrade, or remove? And then you do the same thing with your luxuries as well. Then you say, right, going forward, here's the changes I'm going to make. So you're making notes on, off the back of this, I'm going to call these companies, cancel this, review that, etc., right? And then you finalize your adjustment. I'm going to put, after changing that, I'm going to put this much more to travel, this much more to my investments, etc. And that's a tool that everyone can have in their back pocket forever. So that anytime you fall off track, you can go from there. Now, there is another way that you can direct your account spending if that doesn't work for you. And we have some clients that run it this way. I personally don't like it, but you can. With an app like Moolah, what you can run is what we call the pay first system. So what that means is you set up a hub account, but you have it separate to your bill. So we call it an income account. So instead of having your income go into your bills, you have your income go into an income account. And with an app like Moolah, what it'll tell you is every month, it'll forward project what your bills are going to be. So it'll say, this month, you've got $4,000 in bills. So that month, from your income, you transfer $4,000 a month into the bills account, and then you save whatever's left. And then it says, right, so then it'll adjust. Okay, so because there's $4,000 a month going to bills this month, then that means you can put $4,000 into your savings, this much into travel, this much into luxuries. And then every month, fortnight pay cycle, it'll project that and change it according to what's actually going to happen. So that's how you can also do that. I personally don't like it. I like it to be automated, flowing, set and forget, but you can do it that way and you can have success with it that way. At the end of the day, the importance of cash flow and account structuring is very simply that I've seen people get ahead much faster with a good cash flow system and no investments than I have with good investments and no cash flow system. It's as simple as that. You can mix the two. It's the recipe for magic. And I say to people all the time, if I gave you an investment that gave you 1,000,000% return with no risk, but you couldn't put any money into it, then it's not going to do shit. So start with the cash flow. The best return you can get is what's in your own pocket. Fix that up and start directing, because that's what's going to be, that's what you're in control of. You're in control of how much you earn, how much you spend, and how much you put aside. If you control that, then the rest isn't going to matter as much, and you can direct that and be in control of where everything's going. So start off with your budgeting and cash flow. Start off with those systems. Start with your accounting, your account structure. Use some cash flow apps if you need. Get some purpose about it. Apply that 30 days no spending conscious plan, and then watch things take off from there. All right, see you next week.